All right. Welcome to the December 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Redmond Planning Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will start with a roll call. Commissioner Aparna. Commissioner Aparna, I can't hear you. All right, we will come back. Commissioner Copley.
Present.
Commissioner Gagne.
Chair, I'm present too. I had some audio issues, but I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Lovely, thank you. So we have Commissioner Aparna, Commissioner Gagne.
Present.
Commissioner Van Nymen.
Present.
And I don't see Vice Chair Woodyer. I am Chair Weston. Commissioner Coleman is excused tonight. I'd like to thank the following staff for being present: Jeff Churchill, Audra Cardenas, Michael Hintz, Francesca Liberti, and Chris Wyatt. Look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that's approved. And any corrections to the meeting summary from last time? No. All right. In that case, I look for a motion to approve the meeting summary from November 19th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, that is approved. All right, we'd like to move on to public comment and items from the audience. This section is for any topic that's not related to our public hearing tonight on the Transportation Master Plan. Who do we have tonight?
Good evening. We have two people signed up to speak. The first one is Linda Seltzer.
That will be later. Thank you. No, I'll call you in a few minutes for that. Thank you.
We have David Morton.
All right, please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and if you could start with your name and address.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Morton, Redmond 98053. I'd like to address the cumulative effects analysis for just the 6900 188th Avenue Northeast Land Use Amendment as it relates to Redmond's strategic planning priorities. The analysis of cumulative effects document acknowledges that converting nearly 5 acres of business park land may reduce employment as well as related business taxes. This understated language masks a significant policy tension. Redmond 2050 explicitly prioritizes both housing growth and economic vitality. This proposal advances one at the expense of the other. The cumulative effects analysis suggests job losses might be mitigated by the creation of jobs and businesses in the mixed-use zone. This optimistic assumption deserves scrutiny. Business park zones support research, development, and advanced manufacturing, which offer middle to upper wage employment with substantial tax revenue generation. Mixed-use zones typically generate retail and service jobs at lower wage scales with correspondingly lower fiscal benefits. It's stated that this amendment may not advance several economic vitality policies, including EV2 on job growth targets, EV3 on economic development, and EV26 on diversified businesses. These aren't peripheral policies, they're foundational to Redmond's economic sustainability. The cumulative effects matrix rates the overall docket as having positive impact on economic vitality, yet the only docket item affecting employment land has acknowledged negative economic consequences. This apparent contradiction warrants explanation. Consider the timing. The technical committee report notes the property owner cited less demand for manufacturing and commercial uses and challenges attracting a viable tenant. Is Redmond making permanent land use decisions based on cyclical market conditions? The tech sector experiences regular fluctuations. Will Redmond regret eliminating employment capacity when market dynamics shift? What's the quantified difference in tax revenue between a functioning business park and residential development? How does this affect Redmond's long-term service delivery capacity? The The commission needs concrete numbers, not speculation about potential offsets. Could business park standards be modified to preserve job-generating uses while making development more viable? Please ensure that your recommendation to council reflects careful consideration of whether this conversion serves Redmond's complete long-term interests or simply responds to immediate development pressures. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is that for public comment tonight? For the public comment? Yes. Okay. In that case, we will move on to the public hearing on the Transportation Master Plan. I'd like to bring up Michael Hintz and Francesca Liberti. All right, and we'll let you lead in with an intro, and then we'll go to the public hearing.
Great, thank you. Planning Commission, my name is Michael Hintz. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager for the City of Redmond, and I'm joined by Francesca Liberti, Senior Transportation Planner, and we are here to have a public hearing on the Transportation Master Plan, and then following the public hearing, we would like to walk through the issues matrix and attempt to close out issues that have been raised in previous Planning Commission meetings. We have reviewed the Transportation Master Plan with the Commission over the past year and look forward to ensuring that the plan addresses the Commission's and the public's interests and needs. Following this evening, we'll be back on December 17th, seeking Planning Commission approval of a recommendation to Council for adoption of the Transportation Master Plan. Assuming all issues and comments raised by the Commission and public are addressed to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission and considered closed, we will meet with City Council on January 27th for a study session and anticipate Council adoption on February 3rd, 2026.
Thank you. All right, with that, I am going to open the public hearing. And who do we have tonight?
We have 4 committee members signed up to speak, 3 in person and 1 remotely. The first one is Kelly Reefer.
All right, if you could start with your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Kelly Reefer, and I am with Move Redmond. Our address is 8525 163rd Court Northeast. I'm honored here today to be with the Planning Commission and comment on the Transportation Master Plan. Move Redmond is a nonprofit organization. We're a Transportation Management Association, and we advocate for safer streets, frequent and reliable transportation options, and support people in different ways of getting around through education and encouragement. We also work closely with the City of Redmond on our transportation demand management through commute to production and the mobility management program. As we've looked at the Transportation Master Plan, we see that this charts a really great path forward by focusing on safety and sustainability in our transportation. We know it can be really tempting to get excited about innovation and AI and new tech, but really the way to be a visionary leader in transportation is to get back to the basics, maintaining the roads and streets that we currently have, focusing heavily on an ADA transition plan, building out sidewalks and curb cuts to ensure that the great amenities in Redmond are accessible to all people, and leading the way with pedestrianizing spaces and utilizing the shared street bill that was passed this last legislative session to create safer, welcoming streets that also are more sustainable. We really want to highlight the strategies that have been outlined in the Transportation Master Plan around organizing around access to light rail. We know that leveraging these major transit investments and the first and last mile connection for people walking and biking and transferring from the bus is really, really critical. And then finally, we really want to highlight the curb management aspects. We know that it's really important to get that right from a transportation demand management perspective, and to ensure that we are supporting folks with all different kinds of abilities who need loading zones, parking zones, as well as delivery zones, without creating conflict that creates safety problems like blocking bike lanes and pedestrian crossings. Overall, this is a really great plan, and it really charts a great path forward for the city of Redmond in being a leader, not only locally and regionally, but also for other cities that are seeking to transform from a really car-first approach to right-sizing those investments in access to transit and other mobility options. We encourage the Planning Commission to support the passage of the Transportation Master Plan, and thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you.
The next person is David Morton.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Morton, Redmond 98053. I'd like to comment on Redmond's Transportation Master Plan. I particularly appreciate three aspects of this plan. First, there's emphasis on completing high-comfort bicycle facilities, especially the spine network, by 2035. The level of traffic stress analysis, showing that 79% of current bikeways are high stress, demonstrates why separated bicycle lanes matter for attracting interested but concerned riders who represent the largest potential for mode shift. Second, the pedestrian network strategies focus on filling sidewalk gaps and implementing low-stress crossings addresses real barriers to walking in Redmond. The commitment to developing an ADA transition plan demonstrates meaningful attention to accessibility and equity. Third, the integration of the Safe System approach throughout the plan aligns well with the Safer Streets Action Plan's goal of eliminating fatal and serious injury crashes by 2035. However, I have concerns about climate commitments and equity. Regarding climate goals, while the plan acknowledges the 71% greenhouse gas reduction target and 50% vehicle miles traveled reduction goal, several transportation facilities plan projects seem misaligned with these objectives. Arterial road widening projects, like the Northeast 116th Street and Willows Road projects, historically increase traffic rather than reduce it. These may temporarily relieve congestion, but ultimately encourage more driving. I urge requiring climate impact assessments for all capacity expansion projects and prioritizing mode shift investments instead. On equity, while equity analysis was applied to bicycle network and sidewalk gap prioritization, greater transparency about the city's equity analysis tool would strengthen public confidence in these decisions. Could community members see the methodology, data, sources, and weighting criteria used in this tool? Can this tool be used for transit improvements, maintenance prioritization, and all capital projects? An equity advisory committee could be established to ensure consistent equity evaluation across all transportation investments. I appreciate the innovative approaches to e-mobility, mobility hubs, and transportation demand management. I also support Action 5I, establishing bicycle education in schools, which addresses community e-bike safety concerns. But I urge the Commission to strengthen commitments to climate goals and equity before recommending adoption. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Linda Seltzer.
Yeah, my name is Linda Seltzer. I live at 16990 Northeast 80th Street, JB Senior Apartments in Redmond. So I'm speaking as a senior apartment complex resident. Basically, it's a really great plan, but there's some specific comments I have to make. People are not going to access their services nearby. For example, there is a need for a direct transit route from the east side to the major medical centers on First Hill in Seattle. This is completely lacking. I was on the commission planning the bus routes to connect to the light rail, but the east side had no input on Seattle routes. Seattle on First Hill was the location where I needed to have my hip replacement surgery, and at Swedish, and I needed to have the PT at Swedish and Issaquah. There was no option to have surgery somewhere else, and so people do need to go elsewhere for medical care. And UW Medicine at Harborview and Swedish are two of the main places that need to be addressed. Women and breast cancer. 1/8 of all women get breast cancer, and that means numerous women take estrogen blocking medicine for 5 years and lose significant bone density. This places women at severe risk if they fall, and therefore, and that's even above the normal menopause risk. That means that bicycles and e-bikes are too much of a risk, and it should not be considered as something that's going to happen for older women. I mean, if some women can do it, that's fine, but there are a lot of women who will be told, do not do this. There are no corporate taxes in the plan that I could see, even though corporations commuting high turnover employment policies and fixed on-site hours cause the congestion. This is a repeat of the problem that happened in ST3, where there was no corporate tax, but the buses were primarily serving employers. There is too much reliance on federal funding in the budget pie chart, given the current situation in the White House. The objections to the paid restricted parking should not be labeled as quote unquote frustration. That is a subjective word describing children. However, senior citizens and people with disabilities and moms with little children and multiple bags of groceries need to unload their purchases and their shopping in a stable parking place near their doorway, and that should not be labeled as frustrating, that word is used in the report. Adaptive signaling is not working for on 166th Street near 80th Street, which is becoming a high speedway, and the priority seems to be cars, and the pedestrian crossing times have not changed. Now that I had hip replacement surgery, I can actually almost cross the street in the times that allotted, but before that it was maybe half of the time, or sometimes 2/3 I could get across the street. And then the last thing is the need for a bus on Redmond Woodinville Road. The new hotel opened on in the two circles between Redmond Woodinville Road and 140th Avenue, going from Redmond to Woodinville. And I brought food to one of the people who just got a job working in that hotel. And they're like walking miles to get to work because there's no bus route that goes anywhere near that area, that road. And again, I was on the commission, I saw that. The 222 is going down Avondale. Maybe it needs to be extended to go around in a circle, because there needs to be a bus from downtown Redmond light rail up to the Woodinville Park and Ride. And there's a lot of backup congestion on Redmond Woodinville Road at rush hour, and having that bus route could alleviate these problems. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you.
Next, we have someone that's joining remotely, Brian Buck. I'm going to dial now.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hi, you're on with the Redmond Planning Commission for the Transportation Master Plan public hearing. Could you start with your
Great.
name and address, and then you have 3 minutes?
Sure. My name is Brian Buck, and I'm with the Lake Washington School District, Redmond, Washington 98052. And I'm the Executive Director of Support Services for the district. The district plans far in advance and routinely assesses where we may be able to build schools in the future. And we acquire property when available and when possible. This strategy allows the district to ensure that a school site is available long before the school is needed, but it can also mean that the property remains undeveloped until it is needed. The projects in the current transportation facilities plan included an extension of 192nd Avenue Northeast that would bisect a property owned by the district intended for a future school site. Planning staff recommended the elimination of that project in the proposed transportation facilities plan, and we are pleased to see that reflected. The district appreciates the city's support and our ongoing partnership to ensure Redmond students have the resources they need when they need them. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
That's all.
All right, so with that, I'm going to close the hearing for verbal comment, but leave it open for written comment. All right, so we will move to our study session.
Great. Well, in your packets was the issues matrix, which contains issues that have been raised since our meeting on October 22nd and our meeting on November 19th. And our hope is to just walk through each of these issues and ensure that we have answered the question and sufficiently addressed it if it is something to be addressed in the TMP. So starting with the first couple of issues are related, issues 1 and 2, to the e-bikes, e-bike concern and around education around e-bikes. And we have noted in our response where in the TMP bicycle education is discussed and the specific actions where bicycle education is included. Are there any further questions or comments on issues 1 and 2?
Yep, so I'm going to just move through these one at a time, and that since they're different commissioners, and that way we won't get tangled up. So this number 1 is Commissioner Parnas.
Thank you, Chair. So I appreciate the new webpage, and I went over it, and I do think that I want to keep this open and add the following information. I'm looking for more clarity in the TMP on intersections between modes, speed limits of these e-bikes, and where e-bikes are appropriate in each scenario. So whether it should be a bike lane, whether it's a pavement, road, especially where they share way with pedestrians. Because right now there's no clarity on that, and so willy-nilly people are all over the place. And then the information on the page is great, but it should be part of the master plan, as these forms of mobility are here to stay. 5I, as you rightly pointed out, is great and does have some potential, but I think having others, and there are some other sections which also refer to this, but it would be nice to have it all consolidated and have a definitive plan mentioned as one of the actions or strategies. So I would like to keep this open as a more detail required in the TMP. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. For number 2, which is mine, I was really happy to see this, and it aligns with, I've been speaking to principals and other adults at Rose Hill Middle School, which is in Redmond, and Lake Washington High School, which merely has hundreds and hundreds of Redmond students attending. And this really, I think, aligns with a measured view of where they're trying to get right now. So I think this is obviously an evolving conversation. I think this is a good base first step, and I expect that there's going to need to be continued just continued effort in this area, continued measuring, trying to figure out. It's just evolving so rapidly. For now, for a plan that we are trying to push through this month, I think that this captures what I was trying to get at. So I'm happy to close. I just wanted to open this has generated a lot of conversation, so I just wanted to give other commissioners a chance if they felt like 5I was not an adequate response, to just get those opinions out. Or if they're happy with it, then we can let it be.
I'm very
Commissioner
happy
Van
to see it
Nemen?
as part of an actual curriculum. And I mean, it's very, very, very necessary. It's just gotten so far out in front. The new modes have way outpaced our knowledge of how to deal with it. And people, I don't think people really even know. And so at least at the younger level with the schools, we can start there. And then that comment about public outreach with Move Redmond. Oh, Go Redmond.
Go Redmond, which is the commuter site.
I mean, that's something that would be great, like during Derby Days and other community events to really push. I think people are desperate for it.
Thank you. Any other comments, or shall we move on? All right, on to number 3.
Okay, issue number 3 was from Commissioner Weston, related to how drone activity is addressed. The GMA speaks to air transportation facilities, and I think the question was, do we address drone activity? And you know, there's in the emerging trends and technology section, we talk about drones and other kind of new technologies that we need to be well positioned for as a city. And there's a lot happening on this front, and it's difficult to kind of capture that in the Transportation Master Plan, but the action is around, Action 6A is around evaluating these new technologies, understanding community impacts, and joining state and regional efforts to advocate for local control and regulation applies to autonomous vehicles, drones, and other technologies. And so that will be work that we will be undertaking in the coming years.
I just wanted to add on this one before closing. I think that the rest of our policies, where we're talking about things like safety and equity, really apply here. And so I think we have a good policy foundation in the existing comp plan, and then just using that as just a basis to evaluate things going forward would be great. But I'm happy with this answer and happy to close.
Okay, issue 4. This was from Commissioner Perna. Need to make sure we're addressing all neighborhoods and not just urban centers, so that ideally every neighborhood has a way to get to key corridors. Are we designing the transportation network in a holistic way, or focusing on corridors before connections? Yeah, I think a big part of the Transportation Master Plan, as is articulated in the Street System Plan, is this idea of a layered modal network. And that idea is to accommodate all modes in the city, while also acknowledging that not every street in the city can accommodate every mode to the degree that we would want to, just given spatial and operational constraints. So we have this layered network concept, and in the plan, we've identified a bicycle network, transit network, a freight network, and the pedestrian network is really citywide. We do try to accommodate pedestrians safely and comfortably on all streets in Redmond. So each of these networks really does provide movement and mobility and access throughout the city. And I think, was there, yeah, so I will say, you know, there is a lot of focus on urban centers just because that is where we are planning most of our job and housing growth. But each of the networks also provides access to all Redmond neighborhoods.
Yeah, this is good. I like how it's laid out, and we can close this comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Comment 5 is from Commissioner Van Nyman regarding the Avondale bus pullout project. What does this data show for what those pullouts would add for safety? Explain more about why this project will be removed from the transportation facilities plan. We did have a bit of a discussion about this at our October 22nd meeting. There's really no data available on the safety benefits of the proposed bus pullouts. We are prioritizing doing an overall corridor study to look at all the needs in that corridor. We've heard over and over from the public that there are a lot of needs for providing better bicycle connections on Avondale, better pedestrian facilities, including new crossings of Avondale. And at the same time, you know, Avondale is carrying a lot of car traffic and will continue to carry a lot of car traffic into the future. So there are some inherent constraints in the corridor, and we need to do a really comprehensive study of the corridor. As far as the bus pullouts go, that would certainly be one thing we would look at. My understanding is those were proposed as more of a congestion relief solution rather than a safety solution. So, you know, we'll take all those considerations into account in a more holistic study.
That's fine. That's good. We can close that. I was really trying to get to why it was being removed.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is it's not as much being removed as it is being added and, you know, put off to the side for a moment, and we're going to expand on that.
Yeah, we kind of don't want that to preclude any other solutions that may be appropriate for the corridor. What is the last one? Okay, issue 6 from Commissioner Weston. When does the transportation facilities plan get revisited again? There's potential to improve safety and throughput on 148th Avenue Northeast. The congestion on 148th south of Northeast 24th often comes from lane changing. If we remove lane capacity, could we reduce congestion? So to answer your first question, the TFP is typically revisited on a similar cadence to the transportation master plan, so 8 to 10 years. And yeah, the other part of our response here is typically reducing lane capacity does not reduce vehicle congestion. However, throughput can be improved with the addition of transit signal priority or other signal timing improvements that can provide better operations at signalized intersections in the corridor. Access management may be another strategy to study in the future to just reduce the number of turning movements in the corridor. And then, of course, any improvements would need to be coordinated with the city of Bellevue, since half the street is owned by Bellevue.
That was a great answer. And then also the addition from the conversation that there's just so much development happening there with the old Sears site and other pieces that it really isn't time yet to look at the movements.
That's right.
Especially the lane changes, because they're going to keep changing. And so I thought that was a very helpful point, and I'm ready to close.
Great. Okay, issue 7. Hand it over to Francesca. Give my voice a break.
Oh, and you know what? We're actually going to wait on this one until next time because Commissioner Coleman couldn't be here tonight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, is 7? Sorry, I'm on 8. Okay.
Yeah.
we'll wait on it for 8. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, 7 is from Commissioner Van Nyman. So again, talking about the Transportation Facilities Plan and the Equestrian Access Project on Northeast 116th Street, kind of clarifying if this project was removed and if not, why. So those projects identified on Northeast 116th Street, there's a few phases to them. They are included in the Transportation Facilities Plan because they also include multimodal network improvements, such as bike lanes and sidewalks, and lighting that will improve safety in those areas. But the references to the equestrian portions of those projects have been removed from the project description.
I might also just add, in response to one of the public comments about widening of Northeast 116th. So that corridor, for the most part, has already been widened to its planned width. There's this one segment, it's about a 3-block segment that has not, and that is the project that appears in the Transportation Facilities Plan.
That's actually where I live. And the expectation, I can say, from there's some properties back there that ultimately probably will be developed. There is some, I live on one, and there's quite a bit of acreage back there with, 4 homes. And so I think probably the widening would be required.
All right, so then it sounds like we are skipping item 8. Okay.
We'll come back.
We'll come back to that one when Commissioner Coleman is present. So then number 9 is from Commissioner Weston regarding strategy 4 about speed reduction, with some concern about where speed limit changes or drops would occur where drivers are used to driving fast or in areas that abut jurisdictions with higher speed limits. So regarding speed, roadway speeds, the Public Works Department is starting a citywide speed limit study. So recommendations from that study will likely include speed limit drops, but they will also include areas that need traffic calming strategies so that we kind of determining where the difference is between purely reducing speeds and reducing speeds in addition to other roadway design features that will be needed so that people aren't surprised or by a change in speed, or they're not thinking that they should be driving faster based on the roadway configuration. So that study, the recommendations from that study will include some of those traffic calming strategies that might be needed or where there might be additional design work that's needed so that people's experience driving along the corridor aligns with the design speed that we want them to go.
Okay, I appreciate this answer. I actually want to follow up on this with the idea of actually making a planning commission recommendation. So this is something I'd like to float to other commissioners. As written in the plan, I think it's still a little too firm that the speed reductions will happen. And I think that it would be better to move to language that's more about studying, evaluating, building consensus towards speed reductions. And the reason that I feel like this is important, I completely agree with what's written here. That makes a lot of sense. But speed in particular, I drive a lot in Seattle where they've gone to 25 on most parts of the city. And then you get plenty of 20 is plenty signs in neighborhoods. So they've really worked to lower speeds. What I find is where people agree with it, it's great. And when you have a significant chunk of drivers not agreeing with it, it is very dangerous because you have some people going slow and you have other people really feeling aggressive around them. And so I think that this is I'm not seeing very much public comment on this issue yet. I don't think people know it's coming. So having more of a conversation in the community where we are building towards the change, I think is really important here from a safety perspective, because you just can't, every single driver in their car gets to choose what speed they go, whether it's the one that's posted or not. And so doing something where there's more social pressure to actually decide where we think it's important to go slower, I think is an important part of this process. So I would like to add language, personally. I think that it's important to add language about studying where it makes sense to reduce speed instead of just saying that we're going to in this plan. But I would like to open it up to other commissioners and see if there's agreement on that. Commissioner Copley.
Does the Public Works Department have some period of time in which they're going to finish this study and then publish what they find?
Yeah, as Francesca stated, it's going to initiate in January. There will be the sort of analysis phase in which they analyze speeds and crash data, the recommendation phase in which they're developing recommendations for any speed reductions and any other design changes that would need to happen. And during that phase, there will be extensive public engagement. So the public will be engaged in that process.
Would it make sense to hold off on making those speed reductions until the study was complete, or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, the TMP does not actually call for any specific speed reductions. It basically echoes what's in the Safer Streets Action Plan. Safe speeds is one of the pillars of the Safe Systems approach, and the data is pretty compelling that when you lower speeds, you lower not only the crash risk, but the severity of crashes, and that is why it is phrased the way it is in the Transportation Master Plan, because it is one of the pillars of our Safer Streets Action Plan.
Yeah, and I'll just add, so the TMP and the Safer Streets Action Plan are calling for the study that the Public Works Department will be undertaking in January. So like as Michael said, the TMP is not making any of those recommendations. That specific study that's very data-based, that will, with community engagement, all of that process, that will make then the recommendations on if and where speeds should be lowered. The TMP is calling for the need for lower speeds in Redmond and that a study should be conducted.
Well, except strategy 4, specifically 4A, does get to specific speed limits on specific roads. So there are speeds listed, like mile per hour speeds, listed on specific roads that have not been through any sort of community process yet.
Right. If I'm recalling correctly, it states that speeds should not be higher than 35 miles per hour.
No, we have some where they're saying even 25.
Would that be on local neighborhood streets? Is that, I don't recall the.
So an example of one that really concerned me going to my house is 140th Avenue Northeast, which goes to Bellevue. So and that would be a dramatic reduction in speed.
But is that, I guess, I guess I'm confused what the wording is on, like, I just want to be clear what the wording is in that strategy before we
perhaps
apply
maybe
it to.
if we could revisit strategy 4. What I'm recommending is that we move to language that's a little bit more geared towards doing the studies and building community consensus around the lower speeds, not necessarily a prescriptive approach to specific speeds on specific roads, because I think we're not quite there yet. Commissioner Gagne.
I fully support Chair Weston's recommendation, and I have an anecdote that I don't know if it will be helpful, but it feels timely for me. Many of my fellow commissioners know that in my day job, I'm a pro tem judge. And so just yesterday, I was a judge in the Shoreline District Court, and there were 40-some cases on the morning calendar. It was a calendar that dealt specifically with folks who are contesting speeding infractions, and more than half of them were folks who were contesting it with the same concern that it had been, I drove this route, 20 some years, 10 years. I take it daily to work. I had no idea the speed changed, and folks feeling, having very, very big feelings about feeling like it was unjust to get a speeding ticket. So I'm deeply curious, based on what you just shared, about the community engagement, and then when there are speed reductions, I would just, doesn't necessarily need to be for the issue matrix, but I'm really curious to know how that is communicated, what engagement, I think you just said community engagement, looks like ahead of time for decision making, and then how it is communicated to folks in advance of that change. And then also just deeply curious if there are ever conversations, if the courts are considered a stakeholder, or feedback from, folks who are going to be hearing those types of complaints or getting, contested hearings and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can't speak to the specifics of what that engagement is going to look like. I just know that there is an engagement phase. And, like other cities that have reduced their speed limits, I would imagine that we would have a very robust communication campaign around that, just making sure people are aware of those changed speeds. There will obviously be, if there are reductions, the speed limit signs would be changed out to the new speed limit. So assuming people are paying attention and looking at speed limit signs, that's another indication of what speed they should be going. But yeah, we can revisit that language and frame it more so as, looking towards that study that is being done and less maybe direct in terms of speed limits. I will say though that reducing speeds is a primary strategy for improving safety on Redmond streets.
Absolutely, and I'm glad to hear that Public Works has a study coming. I just want to change the plan to be a little bit more measured, or use the speeds that are listed there as examples of things that should be studied, not prescriptive, this is what the new speed limit should be on these roads. Okay, so I'm going to leave this open, but I think we can move on.
Okay.
Commissioner Coleman is not here for number 10, so we will pause on that one.
All right, then we'll move on to number 11. So this is regarding the map, figure 3. Yes. So this was regarding the bike section, the map that showed how converting trips under 2 miles to micromobility, and how that analysis sort of was coming to be. So so that figure will be removed from the plan. The analysis that figure was representing informed our bicycle network strategy, but was one of many factors. And the proximity to schools, as was mentioned in your comment, Commissioner Weston, was another factor that was used in that analysis. So so we are planning to remove that, and we are also ensuring that Redmond Public Schools are adjacent to the planned bicycle network, so that those schools will be involved in the bicycle facilities as well.
Great, thanks. You can close.
All right, and then number 12 was from Commissioner Gagne. So the neighborhood connections figure on page 44 was supportive of this, but would love to see or understand more about how the focus on increased neighborhood connections will be made, and if that was based on safety data or on vulnerable populations. So strategy 4 in the pedestrian plan shows how those neighborhood connections will be implemented in Redmond. And the map that was intended to be shown that has those connections mapped out was supposed to be included, but was accidentally replaced with a different image file in the draft that you all saw. So a new figure will be included in the next version of the Transportation Master Plan, which will be available in the materials in the packet on December 10th for the December 17th study session. And so that map has all planned new street and neighborhood connections that are meant to enhance pedestrian connectivity. And then additionally, Action 4A shows that, or states that all off-street neighborhood connections will be evaluated for any accessibility barriers or mobility barriers. And Action 4C states that new locations for additional neighborhood connections will be identified where we can enhance pedestrian connectivity. So this process for establishing these neighborhood connections and the evaluation of them will all be data-based and will use Redmond 2050's guiding principles. So resilience, sustainability, equity, inclusion as part of that database process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can I leave this one open until the figure is put in for the next study session? And then I think maybe I have an addition to this this issue in the issues matrix. I really, really loved what Dr. Morton said during his presentation about a desire to see more transparency on how equity especially is factored into some of the decision making. And this particular issue here, I shared last time, like my kids I live on Education Hill, we've benefited deeply from all of the walking connections. And I would love to see maybe a little bit more granular detail here about how equity especially was factored into these other connections in other neighborhoods. Especially also we had a community member here, I think it was Ms. Seltzer, who talked about, safety and walking from senior apartments. So to the degree that you're able to add here so that there's more details about how equity and, kind of focusing on vulnerable populations has been factored in already, I would love to see that. Thank you.
I will just add to this, the connections, both the off-street neighborhood connections and street connections that you'll see in this new figure in the next draft are really based on maps that were from Redmond 2030. So connections that were identified during neighborhood planning processes a decade ago or so. We did not do any additional analysis on the connections that are shown on that map, but as Francesca pointed out, there is an action where we would want to do further analysis to identify where there could be potentially new connections. With middle housing and the like, there will be a lot more opportunities potentially to build new connections as properties redevelop. So we want to get out ahead of that and identify additional connections.
Thank you.
Great, and we will keep 13 open. I'll reach out to Commissioner Coleman and see if he's willing to move these ahead offline before our next meeting, since there are actually a few.
Sounds good.
All right, and then we're on to number 14. So the bicycle level of stress map. Could we show that as a map? And then some comments from Commissioner Weston about the types of bicycle facilities that could be shown. So we will prepare a bicycle level of stress, that LTS map, that will be included in the bicycle plan of the TMP. And that, again, will be in the materials for the December 17th study session. So you'll see it on the 10th in that packet.
Amazing. I really appreciate that, because I think when I talk to frequent biking commuters, most of the feedback I get can be summarized either that way, or else they have questions about the bike lane and parking lane conflicts. So that's going to be a very big one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave this open just until we have the map in front of us, but thank you again for doing this.
And then, it looks like we have one more, not including Commissioner Coleman's item 16. So number 15, the street plan table on page 50, the modal corridors improvements. Could we add some sort of priority to this table with color coordinating or icons? So table 3 shows where these improvements are needed to achieve that complete streets network concept that we've talked about, and which modes would benefit from those planned improvements. So actions 1A and 1B in the street system plan focus on updating the transportation facilities plan and the transportation improvement plan, so TFP and TIP for a few more acronyms for you. So those will be the areas where those projects will be prioritized. And the prioritization will include Redmond 2050's goals about sustainability, equity, inclusion, and resiliency. And the Transportation Facilities Plan already has this level of prioritization. So the TIP will be prioritized in 2026 with this methodology.
Amazing. Okay, so this was a great answer. What I would like to be able to do is something that we did with other plans, including the fire functional plan recently. When there's great information like this that staff knows, but the average Redmond resident wouldn't, if it would ever be possible to include this sort of pointer in the plan itself so that people know like the actual list is over here. Here's the document to look for on the city website. That is so helpful because otherwise people don't know where to find it and they think this is the plan. And there was another comparable one. For bikes, the prioritized bike projects on page 50. That's another one. Whereas if that's actually in a plan like this somewhere, just adding in that, for the current list, please go this other place. If we could ever add those two items, that would be great.
Sure.
And that's just transparency. It's not, I don't think it changes the functioning of the plan at all. It's just for readers who are less familiar. Right. Commissioner Copley.
This isn't related to anything currently on the issues matrix, but I did hear this tonight, and then I've experienced this multiple times since our light rail station opened up. Would now be an okay time to talk about this? This came up in public comment tonight.
Let's just take a minute and make sure that we are through everything that's already in our matrix, and then you'll be first on the.
So just for clarity, on number 15, do we want to keep that open, or would we want to?
If you don't mind keeping it open just to get the changes either captured in the plan or else if you'd prefer to have it as a recommendation, that's fine too. Either way works for me.
Yeah, we can just leave it open. I'll just make a note to add kind of that narrative associated with those tables.
Right, but this information was great. It's just capturing it.
We did receive several other comments from commissioners this afternoon. I don't know if you wanted to talk about those. Commissioner Copley, you also had a comment, so.
Yeah, so we have about 14 minutes. Okay. So maybe what we could do is just get a very quick topic list of the other comments that you received. And then I have one that's missing from last week. It sounds like you have one that's based on public hearing feedback tonight. So why don't we start with the ones that came in over email? We'll go to you. I'll do one, and then if anyone else.
Let's see. A couple questions from Commissioner Gagne. How will the city monitor whether light rail actually shifts people from cars to transit? Do we rely on studies done by Sound Transit or Metro, or does the city do its own separate analysis? Great question. I guess there's kind of a variety of ways we might go about measuring this. One is just getting the data from Sound Transit onboardings. That will tell us something. We are looking into various data platforms, big data platforms that would allow us to more efficiently track mode share over time and actually almost on a monthly basis. So we would, if we were to get that software, we would be able to track mode share and understand, how many reduced vehicle trips there are, how many increased transit trips there are. May not be a one-to-one, but I think we'll be able to understand sort of where the trends are going. And that is one of our performance measures as well, is to measure transit boardings and to measure vehicle miles traveled. So those two things together would help us estimate trips that are being shifted to light rail and other transit.
Thank you.
And then the second question was, how will the city report out progress to the community in an accessible way? We have the performance measures that are identified in the monitoring progress section of the TMP. Those will be featured on the city's website and reported on annually. In addition to those, we are looking at other data that we might would feature on like a data dashboard, and we haven't quite honed in on exactly what we will feature on that dashboard, but our intent is to be able to report out to the public the progress on strategies in the Transportation Master Plan.
Great, thank you.
And any additional from today? Were there any additional from today?
I think Commissioner Von Nyman had some comments on not seeing some maps. I can't remember specifically.
Yeah, and those have been addressed already, and you'll see it in next week's packet.
Great. And then we'll move on to new comments by Commissioner Copley. Commissioner Aparna, I see your hand. We'll get to you next. So we'll start with Commissioner Copley.
Thank you, Chair. We heard from public comment today from two different people, actually, that I think one comment was that concerned and interested riders constitute the largest cohorts of possible riders, and then another comment about there needing to be a bus from Woodinville Park and Ride to the Redmond light rail. My personal experience in the last few months has been people asking me, hey, is it possible for you to give me a ride from Woodinville to the Redmond light rail? I decided to come over to the east side, and I thought it'd be really easy to get to all these places once I got to the end in downtown Redmond, but truth is it wasn't. So I would add to that it would be nice if Cottage Lake, Duval, and Carnation could also get there. So those would be areas to study. And once football shows up next summer, it's gonna be very important for people to be able to access that end node. So if we could put together some studies and some ideas there, that'd be fantastic.
Can I actually ask a follow-up on that? How much control do we have over the bus?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Yes, so this was addressed in our transit system plan in the TMP. So one thing we're really working on with having a transit plan is being able to advocate towards our transit agencies, Sound Transit and King County Metro, because those agencies are the ones that have ownership over bus routes, where they go, how many stops there are, where the stops are. All of that is developed by primarily King County Metro because they're the bus operators here. So we have strategies and actions in our transit system plan about having more coordination with Metro, more points of contact with them so that we can, and more ways to advocate for what Redmond really needs. And I believe it's that first strategy in our transit system plan that is developing and develops an ideal transit network for Redmond. So we're really laying out, hey, this is what Redmond needs and Redmond wants, which includes access to Woodinville, access to Cottage Lake. And so because we've now laid that out in a transportation master plan, which has not been done before, past TMPs did not have a strategy like this. Now that we do, we can take that to King County Metro and say, this is what our community needs. How can we work with you to get there? I will also add that the East Side Connections. Eastlink, thank you. Eastlink Connections program. I was like, something, yeah, there we go. That is including a route that will make that connection from downtown Redmond to Woodinville. I believe because those connections have been in a phased approach that is coming, I want to say in 2026, but again, that's up to Metro. But it is something that they've already identified as a need.
Yeah, I think there was 3 phases
Yeah.
to that, and I think the third phase is supposed to come into effect in the springtime. So, yeah.
If it would ever be possible to capture that item in the issues matrix and the answer for next week, it's just I know council pays attention to that part of the packet. And they're going to be instrumental in making sure that advocacy piece works.
Yeah. I also just add that Metro will be revisiting their Metro Connects plan, which is really their whole strategic plan. I believe
It's sort of like their Redmond 2050, but for Metro, basically.
Yeah, in 26 or 27.
They're
So
starting in 26.
having this strategy in place is really going to be helpful in that process where we can go to them and say, this is what we need.
All right. Well, quickly, and then Commissioner Aparna.
Yeah, I'm happy to add that, open it, close it.
Yep, perfect. Opened and closed today. Excellent. Commissioner Aparna.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I've missed this, but from what I understood, are micromobility, e-mobility, and pedestrian from transit hubs, from and to transit hubs, the only proposed solutions for the first mile and last mile problem? How do these solutions take into equity considerations for people who cannot bike, walk, or use scooters or in bad weather? As we heard from another public comment, I just want to make sure that we are keeping the door open for other modes of transport for that first mile, last mile problem. So I would like this answered officially. So I don't want to close this today. Thank you.
Right, I'm seeing nodding. Maybe if there's any additional follow-up or clarification on the question. Is there, or are we good?
On that question?
Yeah.
I think we got it. You have it?
All right.
Got it.
I was hard to type and listen at the same time.
All right. And then I just had one piece that was missing from our conversation last time in the issues matrix I would like to capture. So the question about rotaries, I think we thoroughly covered that last time. But two things that came out that I would like to see represented in the issues matrix. The question about having signage at every entrance. And I know there's a rotary design document, but we haven't seen it, so I'm not exactly sure what's in it. The two useful things that I thought came out of our discussion was first that there's a sign at every entrance to a rotary. Yep, exactly. Rotary.
Roundabout.
Traffic circle.
Yeah.
It might
British-
depend where you're
British
from in the
way of-
country. Okay. I'm from Massachusetts, so we
Oh, yeah,
have
yeah.
rotaries. So anyway, just having signage at every entrance so that people are clear where they're going as they go into it. That seemed something that had broad appeal. And then the other item that came out of that was, I believe you called them a double barrel rotary, where there are multiple lanes
Multi-lane.
Yeah,
getting off at the same time. And citing that as one of the ones when we were talking about Parago Park and some of the new rotaries up by Totem Lake, that was particularly confusing to people. So maybe extra caution before building that solution. Because I think they're so useful in some ways, and then I think there's like kind of well-earned trepidation there when there's one that's designed poorly or doesn't have the right signage, then it can be very, very alarming to use. So just making sure that if this is a new solution that we're really prioritizing, that we're doing it with an eye to like what makes it feel dangerous to drivers or what makes them skittish, what makes them make spur of the moment decisions.
Yeah, those both seem like issues that would be addressed in a roundabout design manual. How we actually go about designing them. I could see potentially including something around, avoiding multi-lane roundabouts. I don't see us doing those in the first place, but we could make clear that that's not really a preferred solution.
Yeah, I think if there's agreement on that, I would love to see that, and then especially the piece about signage, because I thought it's just one of those topics that like the level of people get excitable. But I think for good reason, because I think they're scared, like after dealing with ones that aren't designed as well, and then some are wonderful. Commissioner Copley.
Yeah, I think if you could just make sure that people understand what's expected of them when they come up to these, everything will go much more smoothly. And some of these entrances are very clear, and that feels really good to me. And when I go into the exact same one, but there's no signage, I feel differently. So if we could just make sure to let people know in a less roundabout way, if you will.
Oh, that's awful. Go home. Commissioner Parna, do you have our last item for tonight?
Yes, one last question, and this is stemming from the public comment from Dr. Morton. I also think that if there is any place possible for addressing climate risk assessment before any of these big projects are undertaken, it would be a good thing. The intention is always there, but we would like to kind of cement it as we did it for the capital facilities plan. So if there is a place to put a little note in saying that before any project is undertaken, climate risk assessment and material assessment is undertaken, that would be great.
And I
Thank
would
you.
add in that it's, I think this is your intent, but I just want to crystallize
Yeah.
that it would be mine, not as a way of delaying or stopping projects, but as
No,
a
it-
constructive tool to make sure that we're making choices that like fit the budget, fit the timing, but also sometimes there are more sustainable options.
And not just sustainable, but more durable options. So it's about due diligence. It's part of the due diligence of a project. So it shouldn't be delaying it, but it should be part and parcel of a project.
All right, thank you. That was a great one to end on.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break before we come back. Thank you to the transportation folks for coming, and
Thank you.
hopefully we will see you one more time.
Yes, thanks for your comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will be back at 8:18. We are going to switch gears here and go to the study session on the 2025 and 26 annual docket, specifically an analysis of cumulative effects. We have Jeff Churchill.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's nice to be with you. I am working on finding the share button so that I can share my screen, one document that is in your packet, and that is that cumulative effects analysis that you mentioned. But first, I want to describe background because I think almost no one was here for the last annual docket. Commissioner Aparna may have been the only person who was here for the last annual docket, so it's been a few minutes since we last did one of those. What's important to understand, and the reason that we're bringing this forward, is that the Growth Management Act requires when a governing body is looking at plan amendments, that they be looking at the cumulative effects of the various proposals. When it says governing body, it also means the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission is making those recommendations to the Council. The Planning Commission is the hearing body. The City Council is relying on the work that you do. So it's important that the Planning Commission is also looking at the cumulative effects of the various proposals, as the GMA says. In the 25-26 docket, there are 2 proposals. So various is only 2 this year, and that makes the analysis a little more straightforward. In past years, we've had 8 or 10, and that makes a matrix like this much longer and much more complicated with many more various intersecting impacts and cumulative effects that are possible. This document is meant as a resource for you and for the City Council and for the community, and it is an analysis of what kind of impacts each amendment could have if it were adopted, and then looks at, well, how do those impacts interact among the, in this case, 2 proposals. And you read it kind of across each row, so you have an amendment in each row, and you can read across that row, and then in the rightmost column, you read down, and that gives you a kind of synopsis of the entire matrix, which is necessarily, because you're summarizing many, many cells, pretty high level, and you can imagine if there were more amendments, it would be even more of a summary. So I'm going to switch to that document and zoom in quite a bit so that it might be possible to see some of the words on the screen. And just to show again that each amendment is listed, and then there are a number of topics identified. And these topics were identified because there's some kind of impact that this amendment could have relative to this topic or this relationship, as it says at the top of the table. So those were economic vitality, housing, utilities, land use, and the environment. And for each, there's a short summary, and then the bottom row here is, well, if you add those impacts together, what could that look like? And then the far right, the far bottom, is sort of a synopsis of, okay, what are the cumulative impacts kind of at a high level, at a synopsis. It's not necessary that all of the commissioners agree with this analysis. You may have your own ideas about, well, how these might impact economic vitality or land use or the environment. But what is important is that you grapple with the cumulative effects of both of them, because either 0, 1, or 2 of these will be adopted by the City Council. And it's incumbent on the Commission as the hearing body to be thinking about, well, what happens if both of these are adopted? Are there areas where these overlap and kind of create a supercharged impact? And I think actually a really good example in the case of these 2 is that, and we actually heard testimony on it tonight, but for the Transportation Master Plan, there is a proposal to take out the extension of 192nd Avenue Northeast. The school district had testified on that one in support of that, in support of removing that. And the second proposal is is a map amendment at 6900 188th Avenue Northeast. That area has wastewater, is in a wastewater basin that would have used the 192nd extension. There would have been a wastewater line that goes under 192nd if that had been extended. So that basin will need to be replanned if there's not a street extension, and that matters because this amendment is in that basin. So it's just one way in which two amendments can have a cumulative impact, in this case, on utilities. So I'm just sharing it as a resource. You don't have to have a hearing on it. You don't have to have any more study sessions on it. There's not going to be an issues matrix, but it's for you to use as you work through the docket. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Van Nymen.
Can you please revisit the timing and what's next on this whole subject?
Sure. So this is related to the docket as a whole. So for the docket as a whole, the timing is really in December. The Planning Commission is holding hearings on the two docket items. You started the hearing on the Transportation Master Plan update tonight, and in 2 weeks, you'll have a hearing on the map amendment in Southeast Redmond, and you'll continue to hold study sessions until you make recommendations on both of those items to the City Council. City Council is expected to take these up in the first part of 2026, after which the council would decide to adopt neither one or both of them. So that's the overall timeline. This resource fits in now because you're in the midst of this evaluation of the proposals, and so it's important to get this information in front of you so that there's a resource that you can use to take a look at the cumulative effects, and so that it's also documented from a GMA standpoint that yes, like the decision-making body in the city of Redmond did consider this when it was conducting its review of these proposals. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Does anyone have questions or comments? Commissioner Aparna.
I just had a question about process. I have a few questions about the project proposal, and so when is a good time to bring it in front of staff?
The project proposal being the map amendment?
Not the TMP. Yeah, not the TMP, the other one.
The other one?
Yeah.
That will be back on the agenda at the next meeting.
Okay, so I'd bring the questions to that meeting. Got
I think
it.
that'd be great.
Thank you.
Any further comments about this?
Just thank you. It was very useful to look at this and to see that there was some sort of, staff analysis of how these fit together. And I think that really helped me think about all of these and really how to think about a docket. And so, yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I think my takeaway on this as well, it's helpful. I'm still really grappling with the degree of reduction to business park land use, and in this case also zoning since they match. Just because the business park, or when you think like job-only areas in our city are only 11%, and that's between the manufacturing and the business park. And we have to increase jobs by more than we have to increase. It's 29,000 by 2050 instead of 24,000 by 2050 for housing. And I'm really grappling with the understanding like how risky it is to meet that jobs number if we reduce, like business park right now is only 4.6% of the city. So it's tiny. Like if we take away some of that, this matrix is helpful to me in seeing a bigger picture, but not on that particular item, which I feel is really the crux of that piece. So I don't know if the right thing to do is I have like, I went back through and read the entire land use chapter just to kind of resituate myself. I don't know if it's helpful to ask questions via email to bring to next week or to 2 weeks out, our next session?
I think we would certainly welcome questions by email from any commissioner on either of the docket items, of course, in advance of next week's meeting. I'm thrilled that someone went back and read the entire land use chapter in preparation. That's great. But sure, questions in advance would be wonderful. That'll help commissioners crystallize their thoughts and us be prepared to have a discussion.
Okay. Are we able to send them out to the commission in advance as a
If
preparation
they
for that
come-
meeting?
If they come to us by like,
This Friday?
Yeah, if they come to us by, depends on, if they come to us by this Friday, we can definitely get them added. We can just add them into the issues matrix, and we may also be able to produce at least preliminary responses. If they come to us next week, if they come to us by next Tuesday, we can get them in the matrix, but there might not be any responses.
Perfect. Okay, that's helpful because I do want to continue to work on understanding that because I think that what we're getting here is useful to a point, but really getting specific on like how risky a move is this for hitting our expected jobs. I'm still not totally clear that I have the information that I need.
And I think that's best addressed when we have that particular agenda item on the meeting agenda.
Lovely. Okay, so I will bring it back. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on this? All right. So we will move along. Our next item is a briefing on the 2026 Code Amendment Series, also with Jeff Churchill.
All right. While this loads, I'll say, first of all, I'm here presenting, but it's certainly a team effort. In particular, Becky Fry, Kim Dietz, Lauren Alpert have all had significant role in this work so far. What I would like to share with you tonight is this is all a preview of things that you'll see in 2026. I want to talk about what the 2026 Code Amendment Series is, and then talk about the first pieces of it, which are the three that you see there on the screen: business improvement, the 2025 legislative conformance, and fences, and then talk about what is the rest of it, at least the part that we know. So the 2026 Code Amendment Series it's really just code amendments to be completed sometime between now and the end of 2026. That's the unifying theme, is time. What's really different about this series versus code amendments that you have been working on in the recent past is that these are more targeted. These are not broad implementation of Redmond 2050, where zoning consolidation, new zones, TOD focus areas. Those broad restructures of the zoning code. Those are really big. They were hundreds of pages long. It's not to say that these will all be very short, but they will all be more targeted, and they are about implementing Redmond 2050, but they're also about regular upkeep of the Redmond zoning code. They're much more typical of zoning code amendments that you see in the years that we're not doing a periodic plan update. The first three packages have complete drafts that are out there online for community review and feedback, and those are the three I'll go into in a little bit more detail. The first is from the economic development team. We're calling it a business improvement package, and there are 4 elements to it. And if you want to, you can go into letsconnectredmond.com and you can read the entire draft. But in brief, those 4 relate to clarifying requirements for commercial floor area in mixed-use development. The second is having businesses are open. When there is construction, people want to know how do I get to the business that I want to patronize, and the businesses want to know how are my customers going to find me. So having business open signage to get pedestrians to businesses that are impacted by sidewalk closures. That's the second one. The third is clarifying review processes for things that we want to see and things that we talked about at some length in Redmond 2050. Food truck courts, retail pop-up courts, publicly accessible enhanced amenity spaces. And to summarize what the complete draft says is that, once you've got a permit for a food truck court or pop-up retail court, for example, you don't go back through another land use entitlement for each individual use that comes in after that, as long as it's consistent with the entitlement, get the permission that you got at the beginning. So that's what that's about. And then there are, we always, we frequently get questions, both from community members and then from staff who've heard from community members about different types of businesses that are maybe not well addressed in the definitions of the different land use categories. And so from time to time, we'll come back and say, oh, well, this category that's retail sales, it also includes this thing. And just add that to the definition so that it's clear to the next person that, yes, that's part of this. So that's just kind of upkeep. So that's the economic development package. I'll just go through all three and then open it up. And they're all, of course, coming back to you for study sessions and hearings and whatnot next year. We have some work going on with fences. The fence code hasn't been looked at for quite some time, and then in the many years that it hasn't been looked at, there have been neighborhood plans done with different requirements adopted for different neighborhoods that are not consistent. Part of what we were striving to do with Redmond 2050 was consistency in regulations across similarly situated areas like residential neighborhoods. And so one place that didn't really happen was in the fence chapter. In addition to harmonizing some of the regulations, there's also been challenges implementing the code because the way that the building division views a fence is different than the way the land use group views a fence and different than the way the stormwater or the civil engineering group views a fence. And they're looking at different things. The building division is looking for structure, and the land use group is looking for aesthetics, and the civil engineering group is also looking for structure. So having some clarity on how the regulations are going to be interpreted and implemented is important. And then the draft has a proposal to actually separate fences and retaining walls so that they're addressed separately, because they have different purposes and different groups regulate them differently. So say the substance is just being divided, but the substance already exists in the code. Okay, so that's a little bit more about fences, but we mostly talked about that. And then there's legislative conformance. So the legislature was busy in 2025 making new laws. Some of those laws affect things that we do locally and that we need to update some of our development regulations as a result. So we need to address these 7 new laws, and so we will. They do not all have deadlines in 2026, but at least one of them does, and we're ready to address them, and so that we are going to attempt to address all of these. So we'll be on time with all of them. They deal with converting buildings that are not residential to residential uses, and there are limitations on what cities can require when that happens, according to new state law. There's a new mechanism to create lots called administrative lot splits. It's different. It's like a mini short plat, really. You can only create one new lot, and you can't resplit it after that. I'm using the same process. So the legislature created a streamlined mini short plat, if you will. There have been some changes to the unit lot subdivision provisions in state law. Redmond already has a unit lot subdivision allowance. Some communities don't, and so it will be a lot of work for some communities. Redmond already does, so it's less work, but some new provisions to comply with. There are requirements for that cities must generally allow childcare facilities in almost every zone, so we need to go back and retrofit a little bit of the zoning code to make sure that that's consistent. There were actually multiple bills dealing with parking, just additional parking preemption in state law. And then a little bit on permitting timelines. It turns out that that bill, while it is about permit timelines, the only part of it that affects Redmond's code actually has to do with binding site plans. So that's what we are actually going to address from 5611. Okay, so there's more, though, that we want to address in this package. They are some cleanups that we already know about from Redmond 2050. So we want to take the opportunity to go ahead and clean those things up. And also make some changes that are in the spirit of Redmond 2050 and are already authorized in state law. And a good example of that is the first one, making final plat approval an administrative process. Final plat approval trips up a lot of people. You might think it is approving the division of land, but it's not really. That happens really with the preliminary plat approval. The final plat approval is saying, did all the improvements get installed that were promised as part of the preliminary plat? And that's something that really can be done administratively. It's the engineers looking and saying, well, did the street go in? Did the lights go in? They did or they didn't. So that's what that one's about. There were some things that were not carried over correctly, like the neighborhood residential zone garage setback footnote. So that one needs to be fixed. There are math errors in some explanations that need to be fixed. We changed some of the substantive provisions for transfer of development rights related to affordable housing, but not all the language got cleaned up around that, so some language cleanup. There's some direct conflicts in the code about whether ADUs, accessory dwelling units, can be used to satisfy affordability requirements. The code says both yes and no. It should say yes, so we need to fix that. Public administration uses in the MP zone, we believe that it is the intent that those are allowed because the maintenance operations center for the city is one of those, and it is in a manufacturing park zone. So we want to make sure that that is in the code, especially as we're looking to reinvest in that facility. Open space requirements were not carried over. The table just missed that row, so we need to put it back. Same with minimum lot size for the neighborhood residential zone. There are some co-living provisions in the neighborhood residential zone that need to be clarified. And then finally, refining overlake minimum building height requirements. You might remember there is a minimum building height requirement in some of the overlake zones, and it doesn't exempt like accessory structures, like community buildings, things like that. And we think that it should, because those are buildings that are not typically going to be very tall. Okay, so there's a lot in there. There's even more legislation that the legislature passed in 2025 that we're going to address in other ways. 1183, dealing with residential conversions, has some design standards that are kind of baked into it. ODRA is leading a major design standards update in 2026, so that'll just go into that package. House Bill 1491 was passed. It doesn't have a deadline that's very soon, except for some impact fee and multifamily tax exemption provisions that will not come to the Planning Commission because they're in the municipal code. We really would like to see guidance from Commerce before we pick up our pencils and our keyboards and start typing away. We don't think there's a lot of changes that we'll need to make in our centers zoning because we did quite a bit of upzoning, and that's really what 1491 is about, is making sure that you're allowing TOD near stations. We did a pretty good job of that, so we don't think there's a lot of changes we'll need to make, if any, but we want to see what Commerce comes up with in the guidance to implement that new law. And then 5571 here at the last bullet point also deals with design standards, and we'll address that with the design standards package that I mentioned a minute ago. That's all for legislative conformance. There'll be another legislative session in 2026, but it's shorter, and so maybe there'll be fewer bills in 2026. We'll see. Timeline for this package being the legislative conformance, the fences, and the business improvement package. They're out there now. We're conducting engagement, receiving feedback. That's happening at the end of this year and into very early next year. We'll refine the drafts in January, and we are planning to be back in front of you in February for study sessions and a hearing so we can bring it to council in the springtime. What's coming after that? Quite a bit. We are working on amendments to the noise code, which you won't see again because that's in the municipal code, except to the extent that there are some provisions of the noise code that actually look like development regulations, and maybe they should be in the zoning code. And if that's what we end up proposing, that part will come to the Planning Commission. The sign code is in the zoning code. And specifically in the sign code, what we're looking at is temporary non-commercial signs. That's an area of our code that needs some work. Temporary non-commercial signs are mostly political signs that you mostly see around elections. And so it'll be a big First Amendment exercise at the Planning Commission, so that'll be fun. And then there will be a 2026 code cleanup that we do annually with little minor corrections. We'll have home-based business regulations coming back to the Planning Commission. That was an area we said we wanted to follow up on after Redmond 2050 was complete to further advance growing the kinds of home-based businesses that we, not the types of businesses like the things that they sell, but just the idea of having home-based businesses that you can grow out of your home and taking a look at that and seeing how we can better nurture that. And then, as I mentioned a little bit ago, design standards update. You will hear about the design standards update in 2026. The hearing is likely to be in early 2027. But it's a big enough piece of work that you'll definitely hear about it in 2026. There'll be briefings. We'll be asking for your input. Here's the link. This was in your agenda packet, but just to highlight this, if you want to go read any of the drafts that are already out there, you can go on to the Let's Connect page. Between now and February, if you're reading and you have questions, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to the staff liaison. You can reach out to any of the staff leads. We all know how to find each other. If it gets to the wrong person, we'll find it. It'll find its way to the right person. So please feel free, even though there's nothing scheduled, if you want to read it and have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And that's all for that. We look forward to bringing real red lines back to you in the first quarter. I'm happy to answer questions.
All right. Any questions or comments, commissioners? All right. Thank you so much for this presentation. We will look forward to it. But, yep, no questions tonight. All right. Next up, staff and commissioner updates.
Yes, so our next meeting is on December 17th. It's our last meeting of the year. And we're going to continue with the transportation master plan. And we're also going to look at the 6900, 188th Avenue, the zoning and land use changes for that property. What else? Oh yeah, yesterday evening, the city council adopted the fire functional plan and the capital facilities plan, which you reviewed a few months back. So that's an update for you. And finally, oh yeah, we are having a public meeting at the next session. So if anybody cannot make it, please let us know. That's all.
And I have one, and that is in your packet on the agenda, starting with this agenda, we put in the 2026 meeting calendar. So if you didn't click that link, I encourage you to go click on it. The council joint meeting, we have booked it for May, late May. I don't remember the date exactly. The council is in very high demand in 2026. So they are always in high demand, but it seems like they're especially in high demand in 2026. So we grabbed the date, and then we have tentatively planned the annual workshop for the Planning Commission for the 5th Wednesday of April. That one's a little more flexible because we can decide collectively that we want to have it on a different day. But tentatively have put it on that day because it's not spring break, it's after the election of officers, and it's before the joint meeting with the city council.
Great. Commissioners, any updates? No. Okay. In that case, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Then we are adjourned.